All right, ready to tackle a big one. What is life? We're diving deep into the nature of life today, and this source looks like it's going to shake things up.
Yeah, it definitely challenges a lot of assumptions about what we think we know. It's less about finding one perfect answer and more about, really exploring all these different perspectives.
I love that. So less about like a dictionary definition, more about getting those brain gears turning. So where do we even start with something this huge?
Well, the source kicks off with physicist Erwin Schrödinger, and he argued that essentially life is all about resisting falling apart, like constantly fighting against disorder and equilibrium.
So it's not just existing, it's like actively resisting just becoming a blob.
Exactly. Living things are using energy all the time to, maintain their structure, function, create order and all that to avoid becoming just another random bunch of molecules.
Wow, that's way more dynamic than I ever thought about it. It's not passive at all, more like a constant uphill battle.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And to really see how this works, we need to zoom in on the basic unit of life, the cell.
Right, the cell. The source describes it as like a tiny little protein robot working nonstop. I'm picturing Wall-E, but microscopic.
Haha, I love that. And actually, it's a pretty accurate image. So cells, they maintain that internal order, regulate themselves, take in energy, grow, respond to their environment, and even evolve and reproduce.
It's like this whole tiny universe doing all the things we think of as life. But here's the thing that blows my mind. The source also says that none of a cell's individual components are actually alive on their own.
Right. It's a total paradox. The cell membrane, organelles, DNA, proteins are all made of non-living molecules. But then, together they create this emergent thing we call life. It's like the whole is way more than just the sum of its parts.
It's seriously mind-bending. It's like, think about a car. The tires, the engine, steering wheel, none of those by themselves are a car. But put them together in the right way, boom, you've got a functioning vehicle.
Perfect analogy. And inside each cell, there are millions of these chemical reactions happening every second, all interacting like a complex orchestra, building and breaking down proteins constantly. It's wild how dynamic it is.
So even though the individual parts aren't alive, it's this whole dance of molecules within the cell that makes it a living thing.
Yes, exactly. And a big player in that dance is DNA, which carries all that genetic information.
Right, DNA, like the instruction manual for building and running a living thing. And the source seems to say that the whole goal of life is to pass this information on, right?
Yep. The DNA that makes the most successful organisms, the ones best adapted to their environment, that's the DNA that gets passed on through generations. So it's survival of the fittest playing out at the genetic level.
So it's not just about me surviving, it's about my DNA surviving. Makes you think about the bigger picture.
It really does. And brings up a question. Is DNA itself actually alive?
Ooh, good one. It's got the blueprint, but can it do anything on its own?
Well, this is where things get specific. DNA has the instructions, but it can't actually build anything without the right cellular machinery. It needs enzymes and specific molecules to replicate and actually carry out those instructions.
So it's like having the recipe,
Yeah.
but no kitchen or ingredients.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. DNA is the information, the code, but it needs the right environment and the right tools to actually create life. And that leads us to a real head scratcher. Viruses.
Viruses. They're like these tiny packets of DNA or RNA wrapped in protein, right?
Yeah.
So the source said there are tons of them, like millions of cubic meters worth, which is mind-blowing. But are they even alive?
Ah, that is the million-dollar question. Scientists are still debating it. Viruses need cells to function. They can't replicate or do any of the things we usually link to life on their own.
So they're like little bits of code that hijack cellular machinery to make copies of themselves.
Precisely. And that's why they're so fascinating and so hard to categorize. They totally blur the line between living and non-living.
The ultimate freeloaders. But the source mentioned some viruses can even reanimate dead cells. How is that even possible?
Yeah, that's what makes viruses so intriguing. They challenge what we think we know about life and death. And it gets even more complex when we look at things like mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Those are the powerhouses of our cells, right? Everyone learns that in high school.
Yeah.
But there's a twist, isn't there?
A big one. So the nature of life explains that mitochondria were once actually free-living bacteria, and they formed a symbiotic relationship with larger cells.
Wait, the powerhouses of our cells were once independent organisms? That's crazy. Did they just get, like, swallowed up?
Yeah, pretty much. Early on in the evolution of life, some bacteria were engulfed by other cells, but instead of being destroyed, they just kind of stuck around and became these, essential energy producers.
So they traded freedom for a lifetime of service. What a career change. But I guess it worked out because their DNA got passed down through generations of cells.
That's right. They became part of a larger, more complex system. And it really highlights this idea that evolution doesn't always favor individual survival. Sometimes it's about that information surviving, even if it means becoming part of something else.
Okay, so we've got cells as the basic unit of life, DNA as the instructions, viruses blurring the lines, and mitochondria pulling a major career shift. Where do we go from here? So we've journeyed through cells, decoded DNA, met those freeloading viruses. My head's spinning.
It is a lot to process, and, we're just scratching the surface of this massive question, what is life?
This source, the nature of life, is really messing with my neat little categories of living and non-living. It's like maybe that whole separation is just something we made up.
Yeah, exactly. It might be more like a spectrum. And the source even goes further, proposing that, at the most basic level, everything might be considered alive or dead.
Wait, everything? Like my coffee mug over here. How's a mug alive?
Well, think about it this way. Everything in the universe is made up of the same building blocks, right? Atoms. And these atoms are always interacting, forming molecules, building these increasingly complex structures.
So we're all just different arrangements of the same, like, cosmic Legos.
In a way, yeah. And if we go with that, the difference between what we call life and non-life, maybe it's just a matter of complexity, how organized something is.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. A rock is simple, a human is super complex, but we're built from the same basic stuff.
Exactly. It's a pretty big shift in perspective. Instead of separate categories, maybe it's more like a continuum, all these possibilities.
Wow, that makes the whole what is life question even crazier. If we're all on this spectrum, where do we humans even fit in? We like to think we're pretty special.
We do, don't we? For a long time, humans saw themselves as separate from nature, superior to it. But, as we learn more about evolution, how connected everything is, that view is changing.
So instead of being the top of the pyramid, we're just part of this giant web of life.
Exactly. And the more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how much we don't know. It's humbling, but also exciting.
Getting some real pale blue dot vibes here. But speaking of pushing boundaries, the source also talks about AI, artificial intelligence, and the possibility of creating artificial life. That's a whole other level.
It is. And it really makes us think about our own biases, what we even consider life. If we can make a machine that does all the life things, organizes itself, adapts, maybe even reproduces, would we say it's alive?
That's tough. I want to say no, it's just a machine. But then if it can learn and grow and evolve, is it really that different from us?
Right. And what if we could create artificial life? What does that say about us? Are we just biological machines? Is consciousness just really complex computation?
Well, now we're getting deep.
But these are the kinds of questions we need to be asking, especially with technology changing so fast.
Okay, so we've got this spectrum of life, the huge universe, and now mind-blowing AI. I'm a little overwhelmed. Any takeaway message here? Something to help me make sense of it all.
I think the main thing is our understanding of life is always changing. The lines we thought were so clear are getting blurry. The more we learn, the more we need to rethink what we think we know.
So maybe asking what is life is the wrong question.
Maybe. A better question might be, what are the different ways that life can, show itself? Or even, how can we better understand how everything's connected, the living and the non-living?
I like that. It's not about a rigid definition, but about exploring all this diversity and complexity. Feels more like what we've been talking about.
Exactly. And that exploration, that constant learning is what makes this whole conversation so interesting. It's not about getting the right answer. It's about growing our understanding and, accepting the mystery of it all.
It's been quite the journey. From those tiny cells to the idea that, everything might be on a spectrum of life.
Yeah. We even talked about whether AI could be alive someday, which really throws a wrench in things.
And through it all, one thing's for sure. There's no easy answer to what is life. It's the more we try to define it, the more it slips away.
It's true. But even without that perfect definition, exploring this question has given us some pretty amazing insights.
Definitely. It makes you realize just how connected everything is. We're all part of this huge web of life that goes back billions of years.
That's a big takeaway from the nature of life, right? It challenges the whole idea that humans are separate or better than the natural world.
Because at the end of the day, we're all made of the same stuff.
Yeah.
Stardust. And we're all bound by those same laws of physics, participating in the same cosmic dance.
Exactly. And that, it can be humbling, but it's also empowering.
I see that. It's
Yeah.
like instead of feeling isolated, you feel this sense of belonging, part of something so much bigger.
Right. And that feeling can help us appreciate the beauty of life, all kinds of life, and make us want to protect it.
It's like we're not just along for the ride, we're actually part of this whole evolution thing that's still going on.
Exactly. We've got to understand our place in this web of life and, act in a way that keeps things in balance.
So we've talked about a lot, but I still have this question nagging at me. If we can't really define life, how do we even know we're living it?
That's the big mystery, right? Maybe the answer isn't in some definition. Maybe it's in our own experience.
You mean we just know it when we feel it?
Think about it. We feel the sun, the rush of emotions. We see a sunset, and it's amazing. We feel joy, love, sadness, curiosity. All those things, they're part of being alive. Maybe they point to something deeper, something we can't explain with words.
So maybe the meaning of life isn't something we read in a book or figure out with science. Maybe it's about living to the fullest, enjoying our experiences, connecting with the world around us.
Maybe. And maybe just thinking about these questions, trying to understand, that's part of being alive too.
Wow. That's a really cool thought.
It's about our curiosity, that drive to figure out this crazy, mysterious universe.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into what is life. We've explored some wild ideas, probably raised more questions than we answered, and hopefully got you thinking about this amazing topic.
Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.
And if you want to go even deeper, check out the full text of The Nature of Life. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Until next time, keep those minds buzzing and hearts open.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.